Navy, when you leave 3000, trim left heading 180.
Hello YouTube and welcome, I'm your host Naval Aviator. Well, today I'm going to take you on a flight with the airline that I fly for, which is Southwest Virtual, and we're taking Southwest 1117, a Boeing 737-800 from San Juan up to Orlando. I hope to split the video into 5 parts. The first is going to be the flight planning, then we'll go on to the pre-flight, the takeoff and cruise, descent and landing, and then we'll end it with the shutdown. There's a lot of work that needs to go into planning a flight before we can get over to the aircraft and start the pre-flight. So what we'll do now is we'll head over to the dispatch office and we'll start putting together the flight plan, and I can show you what goes into that procedure. So I'll see you in the dispatch office in a few moments. Hello guys and welcome back. We're at the flight dispatch office. We can start putting together the flight plan. We've got quite a bit to go over before we can get out to the aircraft and start our pre-flight. So without further ado, we'll get cracking. So we're looking at the flightaware.com website. This is a website that I use to get some information, to get the ball rolling with the flight plan. What we're looking at here is the actual Southwest 1117 flight that took place at 0600 this morning. And it gives us a visual representation of the route when it went up from San Juan up through the Caribbean and then into Orlando. We're looking at the altitude fold was 38,000 feet. I'm going to be taking 34,000 feet for our flight. And then the other piece of information is this route down here. This is what we'll put into the flight management computer. Now I use PFBX to do my flight planning, and I'm going to let PFBX generate a flight plan, and I'm hoping that it'll be a little bit different to this one in terms of the arrival. So what we'll do now is we'll go into PFBX and we'll start planning the flight. So we're doing Southwest 1117. We're going from San Juan, which is Tango Juliet Sierra Juliet, to Kilo Mike Charlie Oscar. So it's given us 08 and 36 right based on the weather conditions at the moment. So let's just double check those. We'll go to Active Skynex, which is the weather engine that I use, and at San Juan, yeah, it's given us 060 at 12 knots. So that's really important for us, the winds. It determines the runway that we'll be using, whether we're landing or taking off. We'll always land, take off into a headwind. Now over at Orlando, the weather is currently 0908 knots, so it's coming directly from the east. And I know for a fact, if we look at the charts, that if we look at the air-ground chart for Orlando, so Kilo Mike Charlie Oscar, that the runways run north and south. So we've got the wind coming directly from the east, so there isn't a headwind, but it's only 8 knots, so it's very negligible. It'll have very little effect on us. So we'll take 36 right as our landing airfield. So let's go back to PFBX and let's get the rest of the information filled in. It's a scheduled air service, and we're going to be departing 0600. This is the aircraft that we're using, putting in flight level 340, that's 34,000 feet. Our cost index is 26. Cost index is just it's a means of managing the aircraft as efficiently as you possibly can during various phases of flight. Different airlines use different cost indexes. I'm using 26 and a payload. Let's generate a random payload. Take that's slightly less than that. A bit more than that. Okay, well, yeah, we'll go with that. 158 adults, 4 children, 1 infant. So we've got a zero fuel weight of about 60 tons. So we could go up to 61,689. So we'll put our fuel in there. I'm going to put in 30 minutes of holding fuel. So if we have to perform a hold, if we have to go around and put ourselves into a hold, or if we need to go into a hold to bleed off some altitude on the arrival, we've got sufficient amount of fuel to do that. Look at our route now, and say we'll get PFBX to generate the route for us, and yeah, that's good. We've got the Coney 2 departure to the Sapo transition, and the Goofy 6 arrival to the Tango Romeo Victor transition. Just think the destination alternates. If we have to divert, we'll take Kilo Oscar Romeo Lima, which is about 40, yeah, it's 14 miles away. Let's just go and have a look at our departures now. Look at the charts for San Juan, Tango Juliet, Sierra Juliet. Okay, so we know that we're going to be going off of runway 08, and we're using the Coney standard instrument departure, and that's what we're looking at here. So here's the airfield down here. It's got some lines coming out here, but if we look in the inset here, it gives us a more detailed explanation of the departure that it wants us to carry out. So we're going to take off here on a heading of 078 degrees, and at 520 feet we're going to perform a left hand turn to a heading of 350 degrees, and that's showing us the way to the Coney 2 departure. So if we scroll up, there's the waypoint Coney. This is the Coney 2 departure. It takes us to this waypoint here, PALD, and then we'll do a left turn here onto 320 degrees to next to the final waypoint of the standard instrument departure, which is Sapo, and from there on we'll proceed up to our cruise altitude and continue on the flight plan up to Orlando. So let's go over now and look at the arrival phase. It's going to be a little bit more complex. This has got 2 parts to deal with. We've got to deal with the arrival, which is the Goofy 6 arrival. Okay, so very busy picture going on here. Okay, so break it down and explain it to you. Just go back to the flight plan and see what transitions give us the Tango Romeo Victor transition. Let's go back to our chart, and that's this waypoint here. So we'll start the arrival from this point here. We'll transit down here on the 303 degree radial from that beacon, and we're going to this waypoint here, waypoint Bern. Now we need to be at an altitude here, and it depends what runway we're landing on. Okay, so we know that we're going to be landing in a northerly direction. We've been given 36 right for the landing runway. So if we are landing north, we need to be at 8,000 feet at this waypoint, and from that waypoint we'll then head up to this waypoint here, which is Odell, and then we'll pick up the second part of the landing phase, which is the instrument approach. Okay, now I know that the initial fix for the instrument landing approach is going to be this waypoint here, Tramp. Let's go down and have a look at the plate. So we're looking at the instrument landing plate and the localizer plate for runway 36 right. We've got a top-down view of the approach, and then down here we've got a side-on view. So here we are, we're going to be at tramp, and we need to be at 5,000 feet or below, because when we hit Silky, which is where the approach starts, we need to be at 3,000 feet. Okay, that's where we start. That's where we intersect the glide slope. So as you see down here, as soon as we hit Silky, which is just over 11 miles from the ILS, which is here, the aircraft will pitch down, and then it will make its way into the runway. Okay, and that's the heading, 005 degrees. And we'll take down, and we'll go down until we hit the minimum decision altitude, which is 200 feet. If we can't see the runway, if we can't see any lights, then we must perform a go around. We cannot land the aircraft, and we'll have to perform the missed approach procedure, which is depicted here. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to climb out and onto our heading of 005 degrees, and then at 500 feet we perform a left turn, and we'll head direct to the NDB Oscar Romeo, climbing to 3,000 feet, and that's depicted here by this blue dotted line. So up at 500 feet, left turn 005 degrees, direct to Oscar Romeo NDB, and then we would then initiate a hold, or we would be vectored by air traffic control back to tramp to make another attempt, or we make a decision to divert to our alternate. So we'll go back to PFPX and export the flight plan, save that, and we'll put our takeoff and landing performance data in there. So we're going to put a flaps 5 takeoff. We're going to leave that at optimum, and I'll explain why in a second. Calculate that and apply, and we'll do the same for the landing. We're going to do a flaps 30 landing. I'm going to demonstrate a full auto land today. Normally I would hand fly the aircraft down, but I want to demonstrate the capability. These aircraft are capable of conducting a fully automated landing with little or no input from the pilots. So we'll calculate that, we'll apply that. We'll compute the flight, and so that's just to update the performance data, so we do that, and there we go. So let's look at the performance data, see what it's given us, and I'll explain the reason why we've done this. So I've asked for an optimum takeoff, and what that means is flaps 5, we're going to derate the engines, so we're not going to use them to their full capacity, and the reason for that is quite simple. It just prolongs the life of the engine. So a lot of airlines will do that. They won't perform maximum takeoff power settings. They'll try to prolong the life of their engines by doing derate takeoffs. So that's what we're going to do here. Now that we've got our V speeds being calculated, these are very important. We've got V1 of 147, V rotate at 148, V2 at 151. Now what do these mean? Okay, V1 is the speed up to which we can abort a takeoff. Okay, so anything below 147 knots we can pull the throttles back, we'll initiate the rejected takeoff procedure, apply the brakes, and we will have enough runway to be able to come to a full stop. Okay, now above V1, which is 148 V out V rotate, that's when we're going to rotate the aircraft, and we're going to pull back on the control column and take the aircraft into the air. if we're above V1, then we are committed to taking the aircraft into the air. Okay, so even if we have an emergency, even if we lose an engine, we must take the aircraft into the air and deal with the emergency, and then reevaluate. There just isn't enough runway for us to come to a full stop. Okay, so that's what the V-rotate speed is, 148. The V2 speed is the maximum speed that we can fly with one engine. Okay, so we mustn't go above 151 knots if we lose an engine on takeoff. Okay, and then we've got our landing data. Flaps 30. We've got a reference speed of 147 knots. That's what we'll land at. Normally 147 plus 5, and then our approach speed of 152 knots. Okay, if we scroll down further, we've got the route that we're taking, and then this is the route in its entirety. This is a breakdown of all the waypoints, what the track is, the heading track is going to be, the altitude, what the wind speed and direction is being predicted at, the altitude we're going to be flying at, latitude and longitude, gives us estimated times between each waypoint, and then when we come to do our descent into Orlando, we'll take this section here, and there's some information that we'll need to put into the flight management computer in order to determine our top of descent. That's the point at which we start descending into our destination airfield. So we'll release the flight and print that flight plan and overwrite that one, and we can save that, and then we'll be able to bring that up when we get into the aircraft and start doing our pre-flight. So that's the next stage, is we're going to head out over to the aircraft and start doing our pre-flight, and the first officer will get out and about and do his walk around, and we can start making preparations to get the flight underway. So I'll see you in the flight deck in a moment.